to meet you.
My name is Julia Perez. I'm a freshman at Waltham High, and I chose to do this pitch on a Sikan Tumi ceremonial knife. This isn't the only one, there are plenty made. They all look unique to each other because they're handmade and hand-carved. This is from a pre-colonial society from ancient Peru. They were located on the western coast near the La Leche River. They were a really highly religious society. They were known to do a lot of sacrifices and sort of really worship their gods. There were a lot of different societies back then. It's hard to tell them all apart, but archaeologists believe that this is from the Sikan society, along with a lot of other pieces that have similar structures, like the handle of this knife, with similar carvings and drawings that have that same sort of boxy shape with the round head for the gods, and they're all sort of depicted the same way. And this knife, the first thing that stood out to me really was the color, because it's crafted out of, there's copper and silver, specifically on the bottom, like the blade part of the knife, and then there's gold on the handle, and that's the same for all of the knives that I've seen from this culture that when my research. I chose this one specifically because the turquoise highlights around it really stood out to me next to the gold. And I didn't really realize why at first, but the more time I spent in class, we did a lot of research about art itself and sort of how to look at art and how to read it. And I learned that sort of blue and yellowish, orangish are complementary colors. So they sort of clash together and really pop out, which I think is part of what makes this such an interesting piece. And yeah, it was thought to have been made in the time frame of 750 to 1375 AD, which was a long time ago. And this culture's sort of dying down because of how long the society has been gone and sort of extinct. But pieces like this are still being hung up today in Peruvian households to sort of as a sign to bring in luck to the home. So it's definitely still actively pieces of Peruvian culture. And even back in the day, when it was in this society, it was still moving. It was used more than just in the Sikan culture. It was also used, the Incas used the knife to kill animals, specifically black sheep, to sort of tell fortunes and futures with the organs. And because these knives, they're sort of, they're definitely special, and they were especially special to those communities. It would be for more of the richer people. And it was also used by the Paracas. They used it as a surgical tool, which I never would have thought of due to the round blade. I feel like it would be dull, but they did use it, which was really cool because I personally didn't even know that surgeries and that sort of stuff happened back then. And I think that this should be in the collection because it may not be as modern, but as said about the still being hung in Peruvian homes, it's still actively a part of cultures today. And even if it wasn't, it's so important to keep the culture and knowledge alive about older societies. And even though in Waltham, where we plan to have this entire collection, I think, there isn't a lot of Peruvian people, but it's sort of, this could be a voice for the people that can't voice it themselves right now and could make the community more welcoming to that community. And it's really educating because I didn't know much about anything Peruvian or ancient cultures or anything like that until I started researching this. And I just kept having more and more questions where I wanted answers. And I learned a lot from it. And I think that other people could stand to learn a lot from it as well. I had asked a lot of my friends. I had practiced this entire presentation with them. And they were really interested by this because they also didn't know much about Peruvian cultures and stuff like that. And sort of, we all, before this class, I was the type of person to go into a museum and not really be interested. I would be really like bored because I didn't understand how to look at art and see the meaning behind it. And while researching this piece and after seeing it in so many pieces alike with it, it really inspired me to learn more. And I came today into our other field trips, and like I can see my progress. Like the first field trip I wasn't that interested and I didn't really know how to describe what I was seeing. But like the last one, like today, or last one before that, I was a lot more interested and invested, and I felt like I could describe the pieces more. And I think a huge part of that is seeing pieces like this where I didn't have knowledge about it and just being inspired to want to learn more and know more. Thank you.
It's a really good thing that your presentation is recorded. That was like so excellent. Like,
Thank you.
Use it to like advertise the program moving forward.
A+.
A+, like seriously, like unbelievable. Also, your slide is excellent.
Oh,
like,
thank
the
you.
slide is great. There are so many things that like I didn't want to like keep us. There are so many things to say here, but a question for you. So I think one of the most powerful moments in that very excellent presentation was the way that you sort of balanced how this is not just a singular object. There are multiple versions of this object, both in the past and also that are still being used today in people's homes.
Yeah.
If you were to display this in a museum context where people would come in and learn about them just the way that you did, would you want to have this by itself, or would you have it with either more objects from the time period or maybe even with like a contemporary version of it? How would you like ideally present this?
That's a really good question. I would love to see pieces like this alongside other pieces, even if it's not like necessarily the knife. A lot of art from this society and societies like around it, they still have these sort of same like depictions of their gods, and I think it would be really interesting to see them side by side, especially because each one is unique to themselves. The line work, since a lot of this was handmade and handcrafted, there's no two that are really exactly the same, which I think makes it special and makes it fun to, like, you just look at it and you really realize, like, wow, these two, they're the same thing, but they're so different in such small ways. It really brings it to life, and I think that this piece can stand on its own because it is beautiful, and you can tell just by looking at it that there's so much culture and so many stories behind it. But I think even with other ones, it makes it even more, and it really brings it more forward. And in my research, I saw that a lot of archaeologists are saying that people will go and find pieces like this, especially in grave robbing scenarios, and sell them illegally to people who are richer and just see it as a decoration and not as a piece of a culture and a piece of a society and a piece of history. So even just having more pieces to preserve them and to sort of keep the culture alive in a way that is representative of who the people are rather than just using it as decoration and entertainment.
Okay, I strongly recommend you become an art teacher, an art history teacher, or a curator.
You sound like a curator.
Oh, thank you.
You sound like a teacher and a curator right now.
I love how you broke down the piece by its individual elements and its details, and how you, and in terms of what Layla and Noel were saying, in terms of like you started with the piece, you broke it down by its materials, and then you brought it out to the broader context, which is exactly what we want people doing in museums, and how you tied something that might seem very far away to the contemporary, which is the experience that I think we want people to have when they're looking like kind of merging the historical and the contemporary. So very good.
Thank you.
Come back and thank you so much.
I knew you were worried about being a ninth grader.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Klan Nikunda. I'm in ninth grade and I go to Waltham High, and today I'm my peers are here to talk about a piece of art. My piece of art is a mural pointing at plastic pollution and human impact in oceans.
Talk to us.
My piece of art is a mural talking about plastic pollution and how it's impacting in the oceans. It was made by Sylvia Lopez Chavez. She's a visual artist who works with paintings, murals, and illustrations. She's an Afro-Caribbean woman living and working in Boston. She grew up in the Dominican Republic, where she was surrounded by a lot of bow-colored palettes, which interested her more in her environment and the making of her murals. The reason she made this is because of the impact plastic pollution is having on marine life across the continents and how it's causing health risks to people who do live around the oceans and get water from them. It's also causing animals that do have families in the ocean, like people who pollute the ocean, who throw like stuff that could affect families that do stay in the oceans to die. The reason I think it should belong in this collection is because it shows and spreads a message to people who do come and visit the mural and interpret the message, that they could spread it and take it together and go spread it around to other people about how plastic pollution is causing a harm to the society, and hopefully people who do spread the message, people will be taken into consideration and try to stop the cause of plastic pollution in the oceans. Thank you all for coming. Once again, my name is Kalani Kinda, and that was my presentation.
So,
Oh, say it
yeah,
there.
so we got a question, like, we went to go see this piece, right, in person. What was your experience like when you saw it in person?
I felt like seeing it in person was way better than like seeing it over like an image, because I got to have the experience and like look at more details in person, and I felt like it had a better meaning to me. Like looking at the colors that they use, I feel like it shows it looks better in person, and it has more of a meaning to you as if you go see it in person over a picture. So yeah.
And you've seen art like this, which is outside, right? And also art that is within a museum, the museums that you visited to. Why do we need murals?
I feel like murals, artists can use murals to like maybe represent themselves in the mural, maybe have a better meaning, maybe like talk about the environment they're in by including themselves and things around their environment. So I feel like murals have a better meaning to themselves, the people who make it, and people around people who made it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything you liked about the way the artist painted this?
I like the fact that she used herself in the mural. I feel like it does show a lot of meaning, and I like the colors she used. I feel like it stands out more because of the bright colors that she used, and yeah.
Great.
Oops, sorry. It's okay. And I imagine you've looked at a lot of works through this. So what about this particular one made you want to pitch this particular work?
I feel like I myself, I have seen a couple oceans that are polluted. So I feel like looking at this kind of like stood out to me because I have seen places that have been polluted a lot by plastic or whatever. So I feel like making this mural does help spread more of a message to people to stop stop the cause of pollution.
So you have a really personal connection
Yeah.
to that, really needing to spread that message. Thank you.
I have a question. If this goes in the collection,
Yeah.
what do you think the reaction will be from the Waltham community?
I feel like maybe they would have like a great reaction, because I feel like whoever made this, it had like a true meaning to them. There's a purpose of making this. So I feel like it would be a great reaction from them and feel like satisfying to them.
Okay.
Cool. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, well done, Klein.
Okay.